green. Are you an ultimate Eagles football fan? Well, you're in the right place. Ready? This is Birds 365, hosted by the new Mac and Mac, Jody McDonald and John McMullen.
Here we go!
Who collectively have covered and talked about more than 50 plus years of Eagles football. Kick off your day with Birds 365. You'll get debate.
We love to argue.
You'll get the real story from inside the locker room. And you'll hear from some of the great football minds from around the region. You're about to become an Eagles insider. Get in the game. Join Jody Mack and Johnny Mack and join the football community that flocks to Birds 365. Birds 365 starts right now.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go! Let's go! Go! Tis a Wednesday get-together here on Birds 365 with your Mac and Mac guys. McMullen and McDonald here to hang with you. We got a good one planned for you. And one of the guys I'm blaming for the show being a minute late today. No, the blame actually belongs on me. Because yours truly was sitting here checking the latest post on Eagles, IGGLES Blitz.com. Tommy Lawler, who's been on with us earlier, covered the team for years here in town, now does it on his own on EaglesBlitz.com. I was just checking his latest posts, and I looked up the clock. Oh, shoot, 59. Damn, I'm late. So I had to punch up the video and join my buddy John McMullen for the next 2 hours. We'll stay a minute late. Sorry, John, you're going to be a minute afterwards because you're going to help me pay the price for being a minute late here today. Got a bunch of things we're going to discuss over the next 2 hours, including, as I mentioned, talking to Tommy Lawler from Eagles Blitz and our buddy Chris Franklin from NJ.com. No on-the-field Eagle moves, but they did add another person to their front office. They've had some major defections during the last 6 months, and they've got to restock and reestablish their front office, and they did add an executive who was here before, correct?
Yeah, Matt Russell, who for years was John Elway's sort of right-hand man out in Denver, which a lot of good, but that some bad, depending on who you want to talk to. But, yeah, he was here, I think, in 2006, somewhere in that range for a number of seasons. So, obviously some familiarity, although it's been a while. It's interesting because I talk about these things all the time. Remember what happened in Denver. You know, George Payton comes in, takes over as general manager. You know, there's probably people in that department who had an extra year on their contract, and that's sort of what happens. And now it ends, and you're available. And the Eagles have had significant attrition, and sort of the nature of that part of the industry, the back and forth. I always talk about coaching as a very nomadic profession. Personnel is probably even more nomadic than coaching. A lot of movement this time of year. See it all over the league. And here's another example, because this was obviously a pretty big name in Denver for a lot of years.
And I love the way it was reported. You just kind of cut to the meat and the potatoes of it. Supposedly Matt Russell retired in January of 2021 when John Elway was replaced as the general manager of the Broncos, except if he had another year to go on his contract. Then is it really retirement if you're still getting paid every 15th and 30th of the month? No, you're just taking a year's paid leave. And he's jumping back into the fray with the Eagles here. So his retirement, as we've learned with Tom Brady, retirement is a relative term because you can change your mind to do anything you want and come back thereafter. Brady, and now even the most different situation I've seen, he's playing, but he's already got his next job lined up. Yeah. A rather high-paying job. You and I speculated on this yesterday. How much would they actually pay Brady? Andrew Marchand of the New York Post reported it. 10 years, $375 million, $37.5 million a year to call 20 some odd football games. Man, you talk about a good gig. Fox came out and said those reports aren't exactly accurate. Oh, I'll bet you they're not far off, though. Marshawn's pretty good, and he is Tom Brady, so he's going to get paid. So while supposedly Matt Russell was retired for a year, he's back in the fold, and he's with the Philadelphia Eagles in an undetermined yet position, which I don't know about you as a sports fan. I know it's really none of our business. We can ask for it. We'd like to know it, but they don't necessarily have to tell anybody anything. And there is the always ever-present executive assistant to the general manager, which you never know what those details are made of. Don't know what his title is going to be with the Eagles, but you think it's going to be a pretty significant role, don't you?
That's interesting. I think it's going to be similar to Dave Caldwell. So he's going to be in that same type of role. So, I always joke, it's not the title, it's the job description. Like, what do you do?
Right.
Is the more important part. There's a lot of the Eagles always have, it seems, ex-GMs or guys that have been very high in personnel departments in as advisors at all times. And there's always a lot made of it. John Dorsey, a couple of years ago, came in as an example of this. Everybody in the league knows him. It was pretty splashy when it was reported. And it ended up that John, never came to Philadelphia, really just wrote reports from his house and was there to be truly a consultant on personnel matters. Whereas, Andy Weidel runs the scouting department. I talked about Catherine Raich and her job title, which encompassed everything in football operations, not only personnel, but contracts, analytics, everything. So it's like, what do you do? I think, and we'll see how it shakes out. I think Matt's here to do similar to what Dave Caldwell does, and that's to be more of a consultant and a guy who chimes in and can offer advice to the Andy Weidels of the world. And we'll see, by the way, Pittsburgh had another second interview yesterday, which was not Andy Weidel. So maybe it's looking more and more likely that he will be here. So if that ends up the case, he's still running the personnel department. He's still in charge of the day-to-day operations. And I think Matt's going to be in that similar type role, just another Dave Caldwell-like presence. And then they're going to hire directors of player personnel, which they've already brought in. Charles Walls. I think it's Charles. I always get, every time I hear Walls, I want to say Everson.
Everson. You and I are in the same exact.
I gotta sit and think. And I know they like the way that they describe it as Ian Cunningham and Brandon Brown. Ian was sort of like majored in college, minored in pro. Brandon majored in pro, minored in college, and they sort of split the job. I think they're going to do that again. And then the big and the key hire is going to be who replaces Catherine Raich and what the job title is. Because one of the reasons they lost Catherine is because of the job title. This is how bizarre this league is. And I even asked this question of people in the Eagles organization. Like, her job title is bigger than Andy Weidel's job title, for instance. Andy handles scouting. Catherine's, I explained the flow chart, is above Andy and crosses over to all departments, or did when she was here. But all the NFL concerns with these hires is personnel. Like, they don't factor in anything else. So when you talk about GM jobs or assistant GM jobs, what they look at is the contract and the defined language on personnel. Like, are you second in command on personnel versus, a GM? Do you have final say over the roster? And that's what they look at, and that's all they look at. And just by the title, and the Eagles should probably button this up and fix this. For whatever reason, they haven't wanted to give out the title of assistant GM. If they want to keep people, they might want to start thinking about giving out that title because of the way the NFL does business.
And the way that it is perceived around the league, this is one of those areas where truly perception is a reality. The person who's going to be hired to replace Catherine Raish, it's a Jeff Lurie hire. I understand it's a Jeff Lurie hire. Basically, every job within the organization you can consider a Jeff Lurie hire, because bottom line, if he says no, then it's no. The person isn't going to be hired. So we know it's a Jeff Lurie hire. How much input on that do you think Howie Roseman has? Because
I was about to say, I think it's a Howie Roseman hire.
I think Howie's going to pick that.
Look, if for whatever reason Jeffrey Lurie doesn't like with the way he's going, I'm sure he could step in and say, "No, we can't do that." But other than that, yeah. And we're going to have Howie on. So if the sports take guys, Derek Gunn, Rob Ellis, Barrett Brooks, they're going to have Howie on today. So stay tuned for the JAKIB Media channel. And maybe if they're listening, they can ask him that. Yeah, I think it's completely his hire.
Okay.
The only way Jeffrey would peek his nose in the door is, I don't know, if there's some story out there say, "Nah, I don't want this guy in my organization." Other than that, he could always again step his foot in. No, I mean, this is completely Howie Roseman's hire as who he's going to bring in to fill that position. And that title thing is more important than people think. And I can't figure out why the Eagles just don't. They're being headstrong. Just call the person assistant GM, and it clears up a lot of headaches.
So you believe the person who is hired to replace Catherine Raish is the de facto assistant general manager? Since
yes,
on the flow chart, that person would be number 2 behind only Howie.
Oh yeah, and that's what Cat was, and that's what is weird to me when it comes to the NFL part of this. Like, the Eagles know that. The Eagles explain that. The Eagles, are the ones who give us the information and say, this is her role. This was her role here. She's, in charge of this, and all these things. Far bigger job than, say, somebody who has an assistant GM and only does personnel. Because there are a lot of setups like that around this league where a GM, has to deal with contracts, but the assistant pretty much only deals with the personnel side of it. And that job is far less encompassing as the job Catherine Raish had. But again, for whatever reason, the Eagles have this setup that they've had, and it's maybe cost them for not putting somebody in that particular position. Like, they could call Andy Weidel. I mean, you can call anybody whatever you want. They can call John McMullen and Jody McDonald assistant GM. They could do whatever they want. They could have had Catherine Raish as vice president of football operations. They could have had Andy Weidel as assistant GM. They could do it any way they want, but for whatever reason, when the NFL looks at teams trying to pilfer you, the only thing they focus on is personnel control.
And that's it's been the case in the NFL for a good couple of years now. That this is not something new that's just developed in the NFL. And you're right, titles are important because, and the Eagles just fought the fight on this with the 2 executives they lost before the draft, which doesn't usually happen. Usually the movement happens after the draft. They lost 2 guys at a time because their titles didn't match up to the titles they were given with their new organization, which gave the teams the ability to pilfer them ahead of time. And now the Eagles have brought forth this complaint that that's not the way it should be. And the league has actually changed their stance on that. So if this had been a year later, the Eagles couldn't have lost those two guys. So there is.
Yeah, until after the draft. That was more of the secondary personnel executives were, sort of taken before the draft, before their contracts. And because it was deemed a promotion, you can't stop it. And the Eagles were like, well, the schedule, as I've kind of explained on the show, the schedule for personnel people is different. It's draft to draft. It's not season to season. So, it's understandable for GMs that it's going to be January, but for secondary football executives, the Eagles argued shouldn't be that way. And they won. They actually changed the rule, and they're right. But they could have lost them after the draft. So it just would have happened after the draft. And it just changes the timing. And both those guys, by the way, Ian and Brandon, they both got clear promotions. The only one who didn't get a clear promotion was Catherine Raish. And she was allowed to leave. Ian and Brandon, they got clear promotions, and they were going to go anyway. It was just a matter of sort of the timing.
And the Eagles did, although they lost Catherine Raish to the Browns, they did pick up a Browns executive in Charles. Don't call me Everson Walls, who will be a key addition to the Eagles front office. All right, key addition to Birds 365 with Mac and Mac is our next guest. Chris Franklin from NJ.com, going to jump aboard, talk all things Eagles with us here on Birds 365.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Android TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
The big story, and that can use.
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
In Philadelphia, we celebrated the miracle with pride only 5 years ago. And then the following morning, IBEW Local 98 members went back to work, building this city, rescuing our communities from decay, and inspiring the young men and women of the region to take pride in who we are. Like the Cats, Local 98 members believe in hope.
To learn more about who we are, what we do, and career opportunities with Local 98, visit us, IBEW98.org.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass. Free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit.
The glass is for cocktails, right?
It's for this, this, and that.
Is the length of the glass equal to your...
You betcha.
But is it made out of...
Glass?
Yeah, okay, but is the rip...
Smooth?
Will you stop doing...
That?
I'm the professional here.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. 1 free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. All from the company that's highly awarded. 0 carbs, 0 sugar, and deliciously tasting vodka. So good, it just disappears.
You got a Waiting Wednesday edition here on Birds 365. What are we waiting for? Camp, preseason, getting all the way to day 123 from now, which is the second Sunday of September, first Sunday of the season for the Philadelphia Eagles. How are we going to work our way through the wait? Get opinions from guys like Chris Franklin, who's good enough to hop on board with us from NJ.com. Been a couple of weeks, Mr. Franklin. I don't believe we've had you on since the Eagles had their draft. I know we probably get a little too caught up in this, but A+ through F draft, which includes the addition of a key veteran wide receiver. What kind of grade would you give the Birds for the draft and the accompanying deals that they made with it?
I think everything overall, I'd probably give it a B+. I think it's a solid B+. I think you got a defensive tackle now in Jordan Davis that you can actually, clear out the linebackers. I like the move for A.J. Brown a lot. Jurgens I like a lot. I thought maybe they didn't have to, select them at there. I thought they could have fallen back a few spots. But overall, looking for what they were able to accomplish with the assets that they all had, I can't fault them with that. I thought they did a good, decent job with that.
Certainly day one. So I guess if I want to play devil's advocate, Chris, I have to look at the loss of volume because you start the process with 10 picks, you end up with 5 picks. And look, you can't address everything when you have 5 picks. So as exciting as it is to have Jordan Davis and A.J. Brown, as you mentioned, you still look at the secondary. And if the Eagles had to play today, which Howie Roseman will say today on JAKIB Media, another drop. We don't have to play a game today, but if they did, Zach McPherson is your starting outside corner. Marcus Epps is one of your starting safeties. Can that sustain itself to week one, or the Eagles have to make upgrades?
First, I want to know, did they offer you guys any contracts yet? Because they've been recently in the running for everybody else. You hear the Eagles linked to them, but I think when you look at Epps, I think they have a lot more confidence, I think, in both those positions. I think Epps is a solid player who I think has a better shot of actually being a better contributor than maybe Zach McPherson at this point. McPherson, I know he was a rookie last year. I was always a 4th-round pick, but just looking at some of the ways that he was like when he dropped back into coverage and looking at little things, I had a few questions, and it's a very, very, I'm a little worried, concerned about that. I also thought, especially it's very telling that they were looking at a corner in that 5th round when they traded back after Tariq Woolley was drafted by the Seahawks, and they traded back. It was like, well, they told their hand. I guess you could tell who they really were looking at that deep. And I think when you look at, I have no problem with the assets they gave up to trade to get Brown to move up to get Davis. Would have been nice to see hey, you know what, you maybe use that 7th-round pick to maybe move up. Yeah, but it's a 7th-round pick, so it's like, all right, maybe it'll get you a spot up. But I'm concerned going. Put it nicely. I'll put a little concerned going into this week one with those two spots.
And James Bradbury was released by the Giants yesterday. John and I talked about him plenty on yesterday's Birds. We both agree he'd be a very good addition for the Giants. I think I'm a little bit more pushy when I say, I think the Eagles should go to a specific link to get him. John likes a player, but doesn't think the Eagles are going to do what it takes to get him done. What kind of deal do you think Bradbury is going to get on the open market? And will that be a deal after he signed with someone else that we say, the Eagles should have gone to those limits?
I think somebody might offer him 12. I really think so, because I think he's that good of a player. I think it's going to be, it's probably going to be a 1-year deal anyway with them. But look at the Eagles. I think over the cap had on last I saw $10.1 million, which is out the Eagles' price range. And I know they can do some things like add voided years to the end of the contract and try to be creative in that way to make sure he fits under the cap. But he's going to get a lot. I think he's going to get a lot of money. I think he's a good fit for the Eagles, given what they did in the past. I mean, when it comes to man, he's better, I think, than he's better than what a lot of other guys they have competing for that second spot opposite Slay and also better Avonte Maddox. But I think he fits best in zone too. I think he was Pro Football Focus had him as a 6th ranked player in coverage, for players who played at least.
Yeah, he's a great zone corner. Great,
it fits
zone
perfectly.
Corner.
Yeah, so if looking what the Eagles might do, if you look at Gannon's track record last year, it fits perfectly.
You know, it's interesting, Chris, because we've seen this a lot, and guys get new players in, rookie players, and they get excited. And, you know, the Eagles seem really excited about their young cornerback situation and people that haven't played, not only Zach, but also Tate Gowan and Kerry Benson and Mac McCain. We're still hoping to get Mac on this show, so it's Mac, and Mac, but man,
it'd be great. Oh, the Mac's thrown around would be great.
Well, we have Tim McManus, so occasionally we get the Mac, and Mac.
Quad Max, yes, do it. You had to do it.
We got Glenn Mac now joining us.
Yeah,
on Friday.
That's
so
right.
Mac and Mac attack on Friday.
The original Mac and Mac, and I'm just the other guy. But they also signed a bunch of undrafted kids at corner, and they gave one pretty significant money for an undrafted free agent, and Mario Goodrich, and Josh Jobs from Alabama, so everybody kind of knows him, and Josh Blackwell. So they have like 1,000 darts to throw at the board, and maybe one of them hits. But how would you know it when you don't do anything in the off season, Chris? Rookie camps scale back to 2 days, right? There's no team drills. There's no nothing. Back in the day, you could stand out. How do you stand out? How do they know? How do they figure out these guys can play before they hit the panic button and say, I need Trey Waynes into your stat? How did they figure it out?
I wonder if it's one of those things where they're like, when they're working out on the field and they go, let's just throw around just to see what would happen one-on-one here. And hey, Josh, why don't you wink, go cover this guy? And that's the only way you can do it. There's too many question marks when it comes to a bunch of these guys. And until they get to like even OTAs, like this, they're pretty much going to have to put a lot of faith in 7-on-7s and 7-on-7s for the most part.
Yeah, no 11-on-11s, just 7-on-7s. Yeah.
And when you look at these receivers, like it's going to be fun to watch them against Devonta Smith and AJ Brown, but I just look at those corners, everybody in that mix. I seriously wouldn't be surprised if Josh Blackwell is the guy that emerges out of there. I liked his game when he was with Duke. Josh Jobe, I know he's still recovering from that foot injury, but when he's on, he's on. Goodrich, he could be. He's the one that gave all that guaranteed money to, and he fits the zone a little bit better than I think the other two do. But I don't know. It's looking when he was when we saw him like doing some of those workouts, he looked a little stiff. I don't know if it's just a matter of he hadn't played in a while. He was trying to loosen up, but it's a bunch of question marks against these guys, and you feel more apt to just go with the veteran and just cut bait with some of the younger ones, because it's gonna be scary when you have to go into the regular season and you see, okay, go ahead and line up against CeeDee Lamb, and teams are going to pick them apart. They keep going to say, okay, this guy's over here. All right, we're just going to attack them.
Well, week 2, Monday Night Football, we know Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen are coming in. So I don't know who they're going to play week 1, but I'm guessing Chicago. But and that might be a little bit easier. But you're going to get those corners, if they're throwing them out there, they're going to get tested pretty early.
Yeah, and it's you better hope they pass soon, because I can almost see him right now too. Okay, especially got a younger guy, they're going to try to confuse the heck out of him now and put a 1-on-1 and make them truly read stuff. The Eagles are setting themselves up. They have all these other pieces set up, and you just look right here and go, okay, you know the cornerback. It's like the end of the story almost coming into it. You can see it in a playoff game. You can see it halfway through the season. The reason that the Eagles defense, if they fail, is going to be because of that other part of the other cornerback. I really, truly believe it.
All right, Chris, let me jump over to the other side of the ball and the guy the corners have to cover, and that's the wide receivers. And this will probably annoy you. I'm not saying this is going to happen. I'm just saying there's a potential concern here. 2 years ago, the Eagles' first-round draft pick, Jalen Reagor, comes in as a mediocre rookie year. Is that fair? Can I say his rookie year was mediocre at best for Jalen Reagor?
I think best, you're being kind.
Nice. At best.
So I'm being nice to mediocre. Good. They go out and draft in the first round the Heisman Trophy winning wide receiver Devonta Smith. So Jalen Reagor's sitting there going, damn, I thought they liked me. Now they go out and get a Heisman Trophy. I'm dropping down the depth chart. And he came back and had if he had a mediocre rookie year, a less than mediocre sophomore year. How much of that was contributed to by the fact that they brought in an upgrade in front of him? Because the Eagles have kind of done that again this year. As big a Devontae Smith fan as I am, John is, we all should be. They are paying their new wide receiver $25 million per year. McMullen and I both have him ranked just outside the top 10, 11th or 12th, somewhere thereabouts. Some wide receivers in the league. Devontae Smith isn't there yet. Last year, when someone was brought in above their number one wide receiver, he actually went backwards. Can Devontae Smith use it as motivation, get a little ticked off that they felt they needed another wide receiver? How's that wide receiver room going to play between 1 and 1A?
I think it'll be all right with going from Brown. When it comes to Brown and Smith, I think it's going to be okay, because I think when you look at what Smith's pedigree, when he was coming through up playing with Alabama, he had to deal with, was it 4 other first round talent wide receivers? So he gotten used to that. So I think he's okay with it. When it came to Reagor, you saw what year TCU, he was the guy, at least wide receiver wise, and we kept hearing the things about, oh, wow, the TCU quarterback wasn't getting the ball, but he's still a great talent. He's still a great talent. And yeah, I think it has a lot to do with the player. I think it has a lot to do with the confidence of the player. And I think Devonta Smith is a more confident player when you look at just overall, and a more accomplished player as well, too. I think he's just overall just a better wide receiver than Jalen Reagor. And I think when you look at his, just like, again, like reiterate, when you look at his background, I think he won't be fazed by it one bit. And I think he and Brown are going to work in tandem and actually do pretty well. I think he's going to do well.
I kind of look at it a different way, but I'll sort of take Jody's baton and put it this way. To me, it's not about AJ and Devontae coexisting. I think they'll be fine, but receivers want the football. And I'll throw Dallas Goedert in this mix as well. Are there going to be enough targets to keep these guys happy? And is that more about Jalen Hurts or Nick Sirianni and Shane Steichen?
I think it's a combination of making them happy. It's going to have to be. I look at more of the coaching staff and Hurts, because I think I wouldn't be surprised if they try to do a lot more like screens, a lot more short passes, because
no more bubble screens, Chris.
I think I know it's the old. It's like, okay, what do you know? 2 yards and go. What do you know? 3 yards and go now. But the only reason why I think that is because I think that's what's going to accomplish two things. It's going to get Hurts in the rhythm earlier, and also you're going to allow those wide receivers to use their physical abilities a lot more too. So, and it'll give them the targets, even though it's artificially inflated by doing that. It'll give them the targets so that way they can say, oh, well, look at that. We got you the ball. We try to throw the ball this way, try to get you involved in the offense. The person I'd probably be looking at is like, hey, you know what? Am I still going to get my touches as Miles Sanders? And because not only do you have that, they got to make sure that passing attack is like, hey, guys, I still want to run the ball a little bit. What's going on here? So
especially in the contract year. Yeah.
you got all these wide receivers and passing attacks.
Like John likes to state, Chris, it's right now it's way too early to be worried about the running game. In April, nobody worries about the running game. Nobody knows actually Miles show up and someone lines up behind the quarterback and go, oh yeah, we got running backs too. We got to get them the ball. We got to figure out how to stop them. Yeah, nobody worries about running backs in April, not at this stage of the year.
Don't you see the 3 yards in the cloud of dust just rising up behind you guys when it happens?
It was out of need this year that the Eagles ran the ball as much as they did. We believe they're going to pass the ball that much more this year. And Miles Sanders touches, if he stays healthy, will probably be about the same. Anybody else's touches? And when we say touches, that, of course, means passing. It's not quite a bubble screen, but it's throwing the ball out of the backfield. A couple of people we've had on the last couple of months have sung the praise of Kenny Gainwell, that this could be, quote unquote, maybe a breakout year for Kenneth Gainwell. You buying into that? You think Gainwell takes a major step up this year?
I'd probably go Scott. I think Boston Scott might be the guy. I truly believe. I think Gainwell's nice. I think he's pretty much going to be. It's going to be how they use them, because pretty much you saw a game on the field, you're like, well, either it's going to be outside run or if it's going to be a jet sweep or it's going to be a pass to him. But he got predictable. I look at it when I see Scott, I see a guy who can still do all that stuff, but also effectively run not only outside, but also inside as well, too, especially around that goal line area, because he had 7 touchdowns last year within the goal line. So I look at his game. I look at the fact they don't have a bona fide number 2 running back. And I think when you couple in his experience, when you couple in what his production is able to do, I think he fills in nicely in that running back 2 spot. And I think he's the one that probably may take away a little bit, a few Sanders touches here and there, considering that you don't know what you have long term. And knowing what you have with Sanders and his injury history, Scott was the first one in. So I think he's the one that might be have a little impact of a good impact here too.
All right, it is May, but we've gone down this rabbit hole, so I'm going to keep going down it, Chris. You're right. There is no defined running back 2. We talked about that volume, 10 picks turning into 5 picks. So running back is another position we all said, well, they're going to take a running back on day 3. But they couldn't because they gave up those late round picks. They did sign Kennedy Brooks from Oklahoma as an undrafted kid. Jordan Howard is an interesting one. I think he's some kind of experiment. I think every number on his phone is blocked except from Philadelphia, except from 215-610. Nobody calls Jordan Howard. Nobody cares about Jordan Howard, but he's been really important for this team over the years when healthy, and he hasn't been healthy a lot, which factors into it as well. It's August. Are the Eagles going to be calling Jordan Howard? Nobody else is. We know that, so they can wait.
I think they do, and I think he's on a practice squad, and I think he serves the same role he was. He's going to be like your setup guy that you have in the bullpen. He's like, all right, you're wait a little bit. In do we need him yet? Oh, this game was week 5, week 6. Yeah, I guess we can bring him up now, use him for a couple games, and bring him back that way. I think the Eagles know. I think the Eagles know that as well too. There's not this big market, so they know they have him there.
In fact, he might be in the Novacare complex in the back in glass, encased in glass, because nobody else is calling him. Poor guy.
It's like one of those spam calls going on with everybody else. Oh, it's the Eagles. Oh, hey, what's up? We got. Oh, sorry, it's not Howie. Okay.
And most of these guys are okay with it because they won't have to show up till camp. Maybe he's even got the Eagle number blocked until late August.
Yeah,
and then he'll take the block off and go, oh, you guys calling? Okay, yeah, I'll show up. I'm glad I didn't have to go through all those stinking preseason games. All right, speaking of practice squad, I have in front of me the Eagles depth chart. At the tight end position, Dallas Goedert, Jack Stoll, Tyree Jackson, drafted Greg Calcaterra, Richard Rodgers still here on the 90-man roster. Richard Rodgers, I love him. Noah Tagawa and J.J. Arcega-White, the converted former wide receiver. I'll add that up. That's 7 there, Chris Franklin. They're not keeping 7 tight ends on the regular roster, even if they have 3 on the practice.
I don't know. With that much talent, you might have to carve out 7 spots, Jody. For that,
I'll wager anything you want, Johnny Mac. There will not be 7 tight ends on it. As much as they used it last year. They don't want to use it that much this year. They don't want to play 21. There's no way 7 guys are hanging around. How many of these guys aren't even going to be on the practice squad? Who are the tight ends that shouldn't be making September plans to be in the city of brotherly shove?
I like that one. I like that. If I had to go, we definitely know Goddard's one. I think Calcaterra is going to be tight end 2. I think we just look at natural tight ends and everything else that route running as much as they feel like they're going to passing. I think he's 2. I wouldn't be surprised if Stoll is number 3. Then when you look at practice squad, I think Rich Rodgers is the one, and I think J.J. Arcega-Whiteside sneaks in because I think nobody else is going to do that. And figuring that he
get
can
him on there,
fill in a wide receiver and a tight end, he could play both of them. He sneaks on there, and then Rich Rod will be sitting next to Jordan Howard, going, "Hey, you get a call yet?" No, I didn't get it either. So they'll be having that going back and forth. But
yeah,
it's a unique position, and I would have said Tyree Jackson. Thing is, you just don't know now how he's going to recover with that knee. He's still learning the position, and he's still learning how to block as well too. So it's those three things. Maybe they can sneak him on, but I think somebody might take a chance on him as well too. But
yeah, that's
I don't see him carrying four.
Underreported needs for the Eagles, and they were able to draft Grant Calcaterra, and we'll see. But they need a tight end too, because Jack Stoll was all right. Good job as a blocker, but he's not going to scare anybody catching the football. And I think the plan was, all right, Tyree's going to get an off season. He's got so much talent, but now he doesn't have an off season. He's rehabbing from the torn ACL. So that's a position to keep an eye on. Here's one nobody talks about, Chris, special teams. And by special teams, other than Jake Elliott, I'll put Jake off to the side, and Rick Lovato as well. We'll give some long snapper love. Aaron Cepas was bad at the end of last season, but that's what everyone focuses on. The coverage was bad. The returns were bad. They need returners. They need coverage guys. They need a punter, even though they didn't bring a punter in. Am I being an alarmist, or how do you see that special teams shaking out for Michael Clay?
I was a little worried about. I was surprised they didn't even bring one in on the for rookie camp. I really thought
not even a tryout guy.
Yeah, because I think that when you look at it, like Sipas had dead leg at the end. It really did, because he wasn't getting enough lift on there. As for the return game, they really need to overhaul that big time. And I know they brought in Devin Alley. I really liked Britton Covey. I really think that looking back when he was playing at Utah, the way he quickly finds the hole, finds that little breaking coverage, plants a foot, and just goes upfield north and south and doesn't try to go lateral, trying to make plays, running 30 yards across the field when you only pick it up. It's a net 5. Like, I think that the return game is for me, I think it's the biggest need overall. Sure, I think every general manager, coach goes, okay, if we're concerned about the punter, okay, our offense is not doing well, so what the heck is going on? But it's an important aspect of the game. But I think the return game is going to be important. And I think that's where you look at Rager, you look at Covey. Those are 2 guys. I think that's if Rager is a little bit more sure-handed on his punt returns, I think that's how he stays on his roster. If not, and Covey starts to wow people in those preseason games, I think he takes that job.
Yeah, let me follow up where John went for both you guys. Michael Clay, the special teams coordinator, at least a year in, to me, doesn't have a lot of sway. Doesn't have a lot of swag, because you always hear about, we specifically drafted this guy, undrafted free, specifically brought him in because he's an outstanding special teams player. One guy, Kyron Johnson, that they said that about, that the Eagles drafted. Oh, he's a great special team. He'll be contributing on special teams. Usually get more than that from the draft on. That hasn't been the case. Is that a Sirianni thing, that he says Clay make chicken out of chicken, you know what? That they haven't put specific resources into that? Do we read into it that this overall team, as guided by the head coach, is always going to play special teams as a 3rd, 4th, or 5th hit?
I think it's a little bit of that. I mean, I still think they have a couple pieces. I think you look at Sean Bradley. I still think you look at Elijah Riley. I think they have some veterans on that squad that I think they still believe very highly in. Well, I'm sorry, that's Elijah Riley. What am I talking about? I was like, the first one. Yeah. But I look at I think Epps as well too. I think he's still going to play a lot when it comes on there as well, even though he's going to be starting like Malcolm Jenkins used to do. So I think they look at the veterans that they currently have on the roster, guys who think they still contribute. That's playing, I think, a little bit with fire in case there's an injury. You're risking them a little bit more. I don't know if it's. I think it's more of a sway. I don't think it's so much as a sway as it's part of just like, okay, we're just going to try to get the most out we can. We have a lot of young guys on this roster who has enough athleticism to do that, and I think they're able to fill it that way. So I don't think I'm too worried about that aspect, but I think it's just some concern though.
Yeah, I would just add that they only had 5 picks and they used one on a special teams player. I think that is some sway. because when people were talking about Kyron Johnson, they're all saying, what is he, an off-ball linebacker, an edge rusher? He's a special teams player, pure. I mean, he's going to be the Chris Maragos, the Brian Brayman. They're not drafting him to rush the passer, to be an off-ball linebacker. They're drafting him to be that special teams player they had with Rudy Ford, who nobody cares about. But once he left, you said, wow, Rudy was stinking good when he was out there. It's another guy who was always hurt. But so that to me, but the punter is strange to me. So they must have some knowledge about Aaron Cepas that we don't have. I can't explain it any other way, Chris, because you're right. Looked like his leg was dead. So is that just, they said, we figured it out from a sports science standpoint? Because he was really good in the first half of the season and then really bad. Are they competent in Aaron Cepas? So this is this weird, they can't get a punter in here for some reason, which I find very hard to believe.
Well, the market, I think, is a little bit out there as well, too. I think Colquitt was the other guy I saw that's out there and might be worth a salt, but right now I'm not even doing that. I think it's probably one of those things like they try to rest him a little bit more through a couple of weeks. Maybe he doesn't kick as much during training camp to try to save him. And then also you figure that's another part of that field goal operation. I mean, Jake Elliott could be comfortable with him. Jake Elliott had his best season with Cepas holding. So
that's a big thing
you change two things. Yeah. You change two operations to try to fit one just to try to get maybe 5 extra yards, which is important sometimes. But I think it's going to be a little bit more of management of how much time he uses and how much time he takes to try to save him for later.
All right, let me go into a deep dive here, and it's probably because it's May. This is probably taking it too far, but that's what we do here on Birds 365.
We're talking about special teams, of course.
That's where I'm going. I'm dragging special teams into roster construction for the Philadelphia Eagles, which again, maybe too narrow focus, but I'm going there anyway. The young bloods. We got 2 Johnsons and a Jackson. You got Tyron, who Johnny Mack is singing his praises, and he's going to be the best Eagles special team player over the last couple of years. And then you've got the 2 guys that the Eagles drafted last year. So you're talking about 3 draft picks, not undrafted free agents, 3 draft picks. I can't see them carrying all 3 on next year's 53. Can you? You're going to have to pick 2 out of the 3. The other guy is going to have to go practice squad. And if they go practice squad, will either of those 2, the one guy who is the odd man out, I ask you first to predict the roster for me and say who's going to be that odd man out. And is that kind of guy going to be the guy who can get through to a practice squad without being picked off by another team?
I think Teron Jackson would be the odd man out, but I think he sneaks through the practice squad that way, if that makes sense. I know edge rushers are tougher to sneak on, especially you have a lot of they're tougher to find, especially, and he has some talent. But I look at what other needs they have in there. I think linebacker, I think is given what they have available right now for, I think Kyron. I look at him as a Sam. I think Patrick Johnson's actually, you know what? See, Patrick Johnson, I see Kyron, I see playing similar roles and playing that Sam, playing that right behind Hassan Reddick.
Right. Can you have both Johnsons on the roster?
I think they do. I think it's more Teron, especially if they play a little bit more 3-4. I think he's a guy that you could try to say, hey, Kyron, try to learn the weak side as well as the strong side. Even though you're more strong side, try to learn the weak as well too. We'll find a spot for you. Patrick Johnson, I think, was a good rusher with Tulane, but he was a decent special teamers. Boy, I look at what physical abilities and what the other 2 guys can bring you potentially in the future. I think they project a little bit more than they do than say Patrick Johnson does.
So we went Teron Jackson. I guess I would have to go, if I had to pick one of those 3 to go for what you would say, Chris, do you really need 2 backup Sam linebackers that don't play that often? So I'm going to go Kyron. Special teams keeps him over Patrick, but I think they'll keep all 3. They'll find a way. I think they like all 3 players, and new coaching staffs and draft picks, and they like to give those guys a little bit of an extra opportunity. Enough special teams, though. Chris Franklin at C. Franklin News Read them at nj.com. By the way, the No Huddle Show. Now, no Mike K. It's Les Bowen and Chris Franklin. How about that? The legendary Les Bowen and the even more legendary Chris Franklin.
Yeah, right. So too far away. I'm the Patrick Johnson level right now. This Eagle right now. I'm trying to get a little bit higher that one, but yeah. But it's fun working with Les. It's fun talking football with them. It's been great, and you don't always get to talk to guys like you guys and Les too. So it's always fun to do that.
It is always fun to talk to Les. He's a friend of the show as well. We're going to have Howie on today at 12:15 this afternoon. We're going to be down at the Novacare complex talking to some unknown players. Who knows who they're going to give to us? But if you had the truth serum out, Chris Franklin, and had one question you could ask Howie Roseman, he's going to tell you the truth. What is that one question?
Oh, that's a very good one. What are your honest feelings about Jalen Hurts? And with nothing right now for is Jalen Hurts going to be here in 2023? Because I really it's enough him and Han. We heard too many times last year. Well, the Eagles sent somebody out to see Deshaun Watson. Well, the Eagles might be linked to Russell Wilson. Well, they have this one. Then they make the trade and they pick up an extra first-round pick in case they need to trade it. How much do you really truly believe in Jalen Hurts and not reactionary? And if so, why not say it earlier? I think that's the one thing I really would love to ask him and have him get a true answer right now. Why make all these moves for that? Because I think if he did that, I would love to hear that answer and just hear it out there. Because to make all those moves, they hear him always linked to a quarterback, but you say this is the guy of the future. There's so many questions about that. But
all right, then
if only.
Here's where I'll go with my last question for you, Chris. If you slip that truth serum to the head coach of the football team rather than the general manager, and he had to take it after, say, week 3 of the preseason rather than the throw out the door week 4 preseason game. We only got 3 preseason games, so now it's the third one. Yeah. After the second preseason game, that after taking the truth serum, Nick Sirianni has to actually admit, Carson Strong looked better in practices, in the preseason games. The numbers say he looked better. The ability to judge, this is what the coach does, right? He's a former wide receiver. He can judge quarterbacks, and he has to admit, you're close, but who was better? Carson Strong. Is there any chance Carson Strong plays for the Eagles within the first month of the season?
No, they definitely won't do that. If anything, I think it would be mentioned. Even then, I still think no. I think they give Jalen all the way through till week 12, 13 to give him every chance.
And remember, in the preseason, Jody, they're not even going to play him. If last year, I mean, they're going to treat him like Tom Brady in the preseason.
That's why I added and in practice.
Yeah.
How about the wait? Do we even know who the Eagles playing against in preseason and practice?
Not yet.
We know Cleveland won. That's the only one.
Well, days of the entire year. They kicked the Jets' ass. They beat up on the Patriots. That was the most important thing.
Yeah, the banner.
Joint practices. Do we not know who they're jointing with today?
The banner is still up, joint practice champion, which, by the way, at least they have a banner because the Sixers are getting no banner. Sorry for
don't
the
get
Sixers
me started
people.
on that.
But joint practice champions. Yes, the Eagles were 4-0 in joint practice.
They have to get, maybe they can get the same guy, the same company that did the whole Indianapolis Colts AFC participant ones. That'll be perfect too. Just have that up there. That'd be great.
Well, they were a participant too until it was 31-0 in the playoffs.
Yeah, it was bad.
Do you want him playing Baltimore again this year? I'd like to see Kyle Hamilton in some.
Yeah, I'd like to see Kyle.
They usually try and keep it close. Jets, they go a little out of their range for the Patriots. Baltimore makes sense, and they've done it with Baltimore before. That's who I'm predicting and/or rooting for.
I want to see Kyle Hamilton versus Jordan Davis in a 40. Who wins?
That's a good point.
Oh, that is a good one.
Oh, I got a better one. Kyle Hamilton against Nakobe Dean because he hasn't run yet. We're still waiting for Nakobe to put up a 40 time. We got no idea. He might run it in 4-1 or he might run it in 6-1. We don't know. If you believe those who dropped him down in the draft, he's going to run it in 7-1. 40. Come on.
Oh my gosh! The 40 times needs to. I know it needs to go because if a guy plays, you don't run in a straight line and go into 40. I think also recognition makes up for it. The 40 times, it's good for TV, but if I want to watch 40s, I go over to pin relays or something like that.
The only 40 time I need to know is Rich Eisen. Did he raise enough money for the charity? That's the only one that matters to me. Chris Franklin, always a pleasure. Feel free to smack Les Bowen upside the head when next you see him, and tell him it's from the Mac and Mac guys here on Birds 365.
Definitely will. He might punch me out. No, okay, nah. Thanks, guys.
2 out of 3 falls. I'm taking Franklin over Les Bowen. Sorry, that one's not even close. Chris, thanks, bud. Appreciate it. That's Chris Franklin.
Thanks,
from
guys.
NJ.com here with us on Birds 365. All right, Mac and Mac coming back. We still got plenty to talk about. About 20 minutes plus from now. Tommy Lawler from EagleBlitz.com is going to jump aboard. Keep it right here on Birds 365.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Android TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
The big story on Action YouTube.
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
In Philadelphia, we celebrated the miracle with pride only 5 years ago. And then the following morning, IBEW Local 98 members went back to work, building this city, rescuing our communities from decay, and inspiring the young men and women of the region to take pride in who we are. Like the Cats, Local 98 members believe in hope.
To learn more about who we are, what we do, and career opportunities with Local 98, visit us, IBEW98.org.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass, free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit. Glasses for cocktails, right?
It's for this, this, and that.
Is the length of the glass equal to your...
You betcha.
But is it made out of...
Glass?
Okay, but is the rip...
Smooth?
Will you stop doing...
That?
I'm the professional here.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. 1 free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. All from the company that's highly awarded. 0 carbs, 0 sugar, and deliciously tasting vodka. So good, it just disappears.
Got your Mac and Mac guys, McDonald and McMullen here on Bird 365. Thank Chris Franklin for hopping on board. Always a good sport. He laughs at my non-funny jokes. So that's why I like having Chris Franklin on. Not funny at all. Serious spot coming up here on Birds 365. On the JAKIB Media YouTube channel today. Joining Rob Ellis and Barrett Brooks and D. Gunn. Howie Roseman going to make his first appearance here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. You and I kind of kicked this around in hour number one about the replacement for Captain Raish within the Eagle organization. I said it's a Jeff Lurie decision. You said no, you think it's much more Howie Roseman decision because Howie's going to be working hand in hand with this person that much more. Yes, Chris, the question about the under truth serum, what question would you ask Howie? Believe it or not, I think it's a really important question. Who's making that hire? Is that your hire, Howie, or does Jeff Lurie get involved in that? Because it is as big a position as it is, you pointed out that Catherine Raish did more than just personnel. She had a bigger role within the organization. I'd like to know does Howie get carte blanche to hire whoever he wants, or does he have to run it by Jeff? Does Jeff sit in on that interview process? How does that go for the Eagles to be able to pick the person who replaces Catherine Raish?
Yeah, I wouldn't use that in my true serum question because I'm really confident that it's Howie's. Jeffrey trusts Howie, man, and this is Eagles fans hate this. He trusts him more than anybody else in his life. I think he might trust him more than Julian Lurie. Probably not, but
didn't he at one point trust the ex-gentleman Joe Banner as much as he does Howie Roseman?
They were childhood friends. So
right, anything could happen here.
Anything could change. You know, the joke in the NFL is everybody has a shelf life, but and yeah, you're right. I mean, Joe Banner was extremely close to Jeffrey Lurie. So I'm not saying it can't change down the road, but it hasn't changed yet. And, you know, maybe if he makes a terrible hire, it'll change. I look at Jeffrey Lurie, and I think he looks at, you know, the Chip Kelly era as the worst mistake in his stewardship of the Eagles. And not the hire, but giving him power over Howie Roseman. And it was a convoluted explanation. I had to see what I had in Chip, blah, blah, which makes no sense. But I think that scarred him a little bit. And he's got tremendous trust in Howie Roseman. And unless it's a total off-the-wall hire, with some controversial, and I can't even come up with a name. I don't think he would even bat an eye if Howie said, I'm going to hire so-and-so.
It's so funny, the whole Howie Roseman situation, the way that it played out. I swore I would never say this, but I have to say it. I probably would have done, if I were Howie Roseman, I probably would have pulled a Sam Hinky. That when they pulled the power out from underneath,
write the manifesto,
I would have gotten out my pen and my paper, and I would have logged my manifesto, and I would have stuck it under Jeff Lurie's door, and I would have been, see you later, bye. How he stuck it out. He took his time. He went to the other side of the building. He did the tour around all other sports franchises to learn what it was like to be a general manager, the decision-making process and everything else. He truly did double down on what he had to do to get better at his job rather than get ticked off. Although, you know, I'm not the biggest Sam Hinky fan ever. I actually think he did an injustice to this town and this organization, but I think I would have played it same as Sam. Wait a minute. You told me I could do this, and now you're not gonna fire me, but you're gonna ask me to sit idly by while someone else does my job? No, get the hell out! I'm done. I'm out of here.
Well, and that's why Howie is savvy and Sam is not. You'll notice
Jody McDonald is not, because I'm telling you, I would have done the same thing Hinky did.
You'll notice Sam has never gotten another job. Number one, for all those Sam Hinky fans. You can't get him. He's not employable. Whereas Howie Roseman took his time and did the things necessary. And by the way, I just wrote about this a couple weeks ago at Philly Boys. that whole time period, Howie never had. He didn't go into that with the plan that he was going to be the general manager of the Eagles again. But he took advantage of his relationship with Jeffrey Lurie to get this huge travel budget and go talk to Brian Cashman and R.C. Buford and Manchester City, even went overseas. Whoever runs that organization, I forget. And he did all this with the intent on being a general manager somewhere else. And if you want to be the GM somewhere else, Jody, in any sport, don't write a manifesto about your previous organizations. You're not going to get hired, period. End of sentence. Now, I think that guy would have had trouble getting hired anyway.
Right.
Because
that was going to be my question to you, John. Did the manifesto
handicap? Well, I think that played a lot into it. The last thing.
Come into it. I think the fact that the process was an abject failure is a bigger reason why Sam Hinkie hasn't gotten another general manager job in anywhere in the NBA, more so than the fact that he took 18 page. How long was it again?
Yeah,
to just explain to the world his line of thinking.
Here's why I disagree with you, Jody, because a lot of people still think we'll tell you it succeeded. A lot of people will still say
they'd just be crazy, in my estimation.
I agree.
Anyone who says that is just got the Sixer colored blinders on that don't have any peripheral vision whatsoever.
But you do know those people exist, right? I still get them all the time, and they say, "Well, if they just let Sam finish it, the Sixers would be draped in jewelry and all that."
And they take their vacations in Roswell, New Mexico. So I'm supposed to pay attention to them. Sorry,
but they do exist, is all I'm trying to say. And if you see, here's the problem with all the Hinkie to it. We're off on a tangent. I know we got to get back to the Eagles, but what they don't understand is they should really be, praising Josh Harris, because if you want to praise somebody, because no other owner would give some knucklehead carte blanche to lose forever. So if you want to put someone up as your deity, it should be Josh Harris. So no other owner is going to give this guy the rope that the Sixers gave him. And they wanted more. Sam Hinkie still, how dare you not give me more rope? And so that's why I think the manifesto was even worse for him, because other owners are very cognizant of their ex-employees. Because everybody, right? You're hired to be fired in these jobs. Everybody's getting fired. They're all renting space except Bill Belichick. If you burn the bridge with an owner, oh, believe me, the other owners see that. And especially an owner who gave you more rope than anybody else in the history of the world. So that's why I think the manifesto was a bigger.
Right. Yeah, we'll disagree. I think the main reason is Josh Harris did give him as much rope as he did. They accomplished nothing. The commissioner in official league meetings had to call the Sixers and Josh Harris on the carpet for going, all your partners here are not happy with you. You come to town, they sell 3,000 less tickets per game because no one wants to see that dreck you're putting out there on the floor. You're costing everybody money. That's the results of the process, not the results of a manifesto. And I think any other owner doesn't want to be in that room and have the commissioner pointing them go, these other 29 guys are all ticked off at you. You're costing everybody money. That's the reason. The bigger reason. The manifesto.
Well, money always. I will agree. Money is always the end game. But I do find it incredibly ironic that somebody wrote a manifesto about essentially the guy who gave you all this, and you're arguing you should give me more, even though the commissioner of your league is saying, "All right, you have to stop this. You have to stop this," and he still is so entitled. He said, "You promised. You promised." What GM in any sport goes, "You promised"? I mean, come on. That's essentially what he said. Of course, the best part is the hubris of you don't understand what I'm trying to do, which is basically what he's telling. No, we always understood it, you clown show. You didn't understand that you don't live, what's the term I always use, Jody? In a vacuum.
Right.
You don't live in a vacuum. Those other teams that you just mentioned exist, Jody. Those other teams that are getting 5,000 less fans because your crappy product is coming, they exist. You don't get to play in a little vacuum by yourself in your science experiments. That's what the process people never got.
Understood. All right, back to Howie Roseman, who will be here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel later today with Rob Ellis.
12:15.
12:15, right, with D-Gun and Barrett Brooks. We don't want to tell those guys what to ask, and I guarantee you they do a great job of getting some information out of Howie today, player related, front office related, because the Eagles do still have some, even though they've done some hiring to replace defections to other organizations, they still have some hires to do. They're going to ask about the quarterback, which, oh, by the way, I'll go out on a limb here and predict that Howie Roseman will be 100% behind Jalen Hurts, since he has said that every single time since the season ended.
Yes.
This past offseason. Do you think he'll give us any details today about how he maneuvered in the first round? He was great before the draft, saying that he puts all these pieces in place for the first round ahead of time. You can do that. You don't have to just lock something and get something done, even though they made the trade with New Orleans as far out as they did. You think he'll give you any behind the scenes details on the conversations he had and the maneuvers he had to make to get A.J. Brown?
He's been pretty above board with that already. I think it was, the negotiation of the contract, I think, was the bigger hurdle than the.
That's my number one question. Forget the Sam Hinkie stuff. Did you negotiate the contract with A.J. Brown, or did you negotiate through the Titans? Because you're not really supposed to negotiate with a player who's under contract to another team, right, John? Because they didn't slap it together in the 15 minutes after the deal was officially announced. Oh, and the Eagles and A.J. Brown have negotiated a contract extension. We know it had to be done ahead of time. Who was the one actually doing the negotiating?
Yeah, I think it was AJ's agent. And once you get permission, the Titans essentially gave him permission. So then you're fine. He did say he was, working on it before the draft, but it was not done while they were on the clock. So I guess they worked out the framework and, where they were going to go. And at that point, it's got to be accepted. And he did say one of the things people don't think about is, you're trading the pick that, the other team's got to have time to be on the clock to get what they want to get done. So that factors into it as well. So there was a lot of balls in the air, and even from the Jordan Davis pick and trade up, which I predicted. And I was questioning why they gave up so many other picks instead of just the 101st pick, which would have been a little pricey if you look at the trade chart. But if you want a player, you got to pay a little bit of a premium. And they just went with the more volume of picks. And that surprised me when they made the Davis trade. But then it didn't, because they needed that 101st pick to get A.J. Brown. So he had a lot of balls in the air. Maybe those guys will ask him about that. That's kind of interesting. How do you work one deal out? Do you know the other deal's coming? Because that's kind of complicated in 10-minute windows.
And I'm sure he'll reiterate again that they actually did consider taking Nakobe Dean in the second round and were overjoyed.
He's on the board. They had two players on the board, Jody. Cam Jurgens and Nakobe Dean. Got them both.
That's a good, for as far as I'm concerned, good scouting that put a good board together. And, oh, by the way, little luck involved. If he dropped all the way down to you, and they had already given up, as you mentioned, those other later round picks to be able to get the other deal done, so they couldn't even, he's still there. Let's jump ahead 3 spots in the 3rd round to lock him in. They didn't have the picks to do it anymore because of the other deals that were made. They had to just cross their fingers, and damn if Nakobe Dean didn't fall down to them. All right, we got Tommy Lawler's going to join us coming up in just a couple, editor and publisher of EaglesBlitz.com. There was one announcement earlier today, even before we started the show, John, that they've leaked out another game in the National Football League schedule. It's not supposed to come out till Thursday, but Fox today announced, no, not Tom Brady going to take over next year or the year after or the year after or the year after, whenever Tom Brady decides to retire. No, that week 10 is going to be the Cowboys versus the Packers. I think it's in Dallas, as a matter of fact. Key game between 2 divisional winners last year. Dallas, Green Bay just sounds like it's a big game, even if it's not.
What is this league doing? November 13th on Fox, Dallas Cowboys versus Packers. Yeah, I mean, like, we care. I do understand why Eagles fans get a little, up in the craw, America's team and all that crap. And the Packers are the same way, by the way. It's like, all right, we got to announce Dallas versus Green Bay. This is not a special game. This is not Christmas or Thanksgiving. This is November 13th, but it's Dallas versus Green Bay, so we have to make a big deal out of it.
It kind of is and it kind of isn't. It is because you're talking about 2 divisional winners, 2 multiple Super Bowl winners with a lot of history.
Well, they're good. They're good teams. Yeah, they have great history. Right. But I understand fans when they get upset because the Cowboys and the Packers are treated differently than other teams. That's what I'm saying.
Right. And I'm not saying that that treatment is wrong. It was kind of earned over, depending on whether you're looking narrow focus or you're looking wide focus. Or you're looking wide focus, Packers against the Cowboys is a big game because they're 2 of the more prominent franchises in the history of the National Football League. And sorry, Eagle fans, both ahead of the Eagles at this time.
Oh, yeah.
You want to go narrow focus, though. What do those 2 teams have in common? Oh, they both got picked off in their first playoff game last year. Yeah, you did win a division, but you both got beat in your first playoff game by the same team, as a matter of fact, right? 49ers beat the Cowboys and then beat the Packers.
Yes.
So they got that in common. Can't beat the 49ers. Let's match up the 2 teams that can't beat the 49ers. The Cowboys against the Packers in week 2. Now, you know what is the most significance to me out of the announcement for that, Johnny Mac?
What is it?
I'd crossed 2 possibilities off my calendar. Because, yes, I kind of look forward to Philadelphia versus Dallas every single year. We know it's going to happen twice. And the most important thing this offseason is, please, sorry, I'm getting all choked up about this. Please, please, please don't make it week 17.
I think we're going to get lucky. And I haven't confirmed it, so I hesitate to say it, but I did see a week 17 supposed schedule that does not include the Eagles Cowboys.
Really?
Yeah. Hopefully it's true. Hopefully it's true.
So you're not ready to go with this because you're not 100% confirmed.
Not ready to go with it, other than say it would be a potential commander level performance. But I don't know if it's true.
Thank you for not leaking that one, John. We appreciate that greatly.
The leak is, I don't know if it's true, so I'm not saying, but I did see a version that would not include the Eagles and Cowboys in week 17, which would be a good thing.
All right. Would that game be north or south of the Mason-Dixon?
That I don't know. I don't know.
You don't know the exact location now. As long as it's not Eagles Cowboys week 17, because it's really, really screwed the schedule a couple of years now in the last 3 years, where one of the teams goes, all right, JV's in. We're pulling all the starters. We're not going to attempt to win this game. It's the reason why all offseason I've had to say, in my estimation, the Eagles were 9-7 last year. Their official record was 9-8, but I only count them for 9-7 because the last week of the season doesn't count for me. They didn't even try against the Cowboys. We know they're not playing the Cowboys in week 10 because the Cowboys are going to be playing the Packers. We know they're not going to be playing the Cowboys week 2 because the Eagles are going to be playing the Vikings. You're telling me it's not going to be week 17? All right, I don't even have to worry.
I don't know. It's not going to be Thanksgiving either. We know that. Those leaked out. I forget who the Cowboys are playing on Thanksgiving, but it's not the Eagles.
The Thanksgiving game is leaked out? I didn't see that.
Yeah, I believe they leaked out yesterday. I have to look during the break. I'll try to find that.
All right, yeah. Who are the Cowboys playing on Thanksgiving?
Yeah, I'll try to find that.
All right.
The break.
All right, we'll take a quickie timeout. Coming back, Tommy Lawler from EaglesBlitz.com. Going to jump aboard. He's been following and covering the Eagles for years. Does it on his own now on EagleBlitz.com. He joins us next here on Birds 365.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
7 on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Android TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
The big story on Action.
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
In Philadelphia, we celebrated the miracle with pride only 5 years ago. And then the following morning, IBEW Local 98 members went back to work, building this city, rescuing our communities from decay, and inspiring the young men and women of the region to take pride in who we are. Like the Cats, Local 98 members believe in hope.
To learn more about who we are, what we do, and career opportunities with Local 98, visit us, IBEW98.org.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass, free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit. Glass is for cocktails, right?
It's for this, 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 and that.
Is the length of the glass equal to your...
You betcha.
But is it made out of...
Glass?
Okay, but is the rip...
Smooth?
Will you stop doing...
That?
I'm the professional here.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. 1 free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. All from the company that's highly awarded. 0 carbs, 0 sugar, and deliciously tasting vodka. So good, it just disappears.
You've got McMullen and McDonald, your Mac and Mac guys here on Birds 365 on a waiting Wednesday, waiting for the season to come around and waiting for 12:15 because they're on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. Howie Roseman's going to be jumping aboard with Rob Ellis, D. Gunn, and Barrett Brooks later today. They can have Howie Roseman. We got Tommy Lawler. Who cares about that Roseman guy? What is he got a job of some importance? Who the hell knows? Tommy Lawler, editor, publisher of EaglesBlitz.com, good enough to jump on board with us. How are you, Tommy?
Doing well. How are you fellows doing today?
Doing well, Tommy. Good to see you. So we'll start with Howie. What do you think? What do you think of day one specifically of the NFL draft and how he kind of maneuvered to get 2 potential difference makers? You trade up, then you trade with Tennessee to get the proven receiver. What were your thoughts about how he juggled those 2 pretty difficult balls and getting those things done?
Well, initially, I really wanted him to sit at 15 and see if either Jordan Davis or Hamilton, Kyle Hamilton, would get there, because I hated to give up the resources to move up. But when you looked at it, Jordan Davis was a guy that obviously Kyle Hamilton's a very good safety, but you don't know how much of an impact the safety is going to make in the defense that we're running right now. And defensive linemen are every scheme needs defensive linemen, and Davis was clearly the number one defensive tackle. And so to give up a couple of 4th round picks to move up, in the end, it was a good move. And I was listening to somebody from the Ravens talk. It might have been Eric DaCosta. And so the Ravens were sitting there at 14, and they were nervous about Hamilton or Davis getting to them. They wanted one of those two guys. And their fear was if both of them were gone, they didn't have anybody else that they wanted to take at pick 14. So they were nervous about one of those guys getting them. So for the Eagles to be sitting behind them, I'm sure Howie Roseman had the same thoughts that Eric DaCosta did, is I need one of those two guys to get here. And there's no guarantee with pick 13 and 14 ahead of you, and those two key guys there, both of them might be gone by 15. So if those are two guys that you value, you trade up, and which one did you have rated higher? Well, obviously the Eagles had Jordan Davis rated higher, and they went and made the move there. So that was well played by Howie, I thought. As much as I hated to give up the mid-round picks, but I thought it was well played to go get somebody he thought could be a difference maker for the defense. And then A.J. Brown, we're sitting there watching the draft. Rich Eisen starts talking about, I can't remember who had pick 17. He said, we just had a major trade go down. And I thought, well, the Eagles are at 18. So if he's saying there's a major trade that's gone down, it's going to probably involve the Eagles. And I started trying to think, what would a major trade be? Because I thought maybe at 18, the Eagles would try to trade down in the draft and see if they could acquire some of those mid-round picks back. So I was thinking a trade back. But when he said a major trade, I thought, well, trading back to 23 or 25, that's not a major trade.
Not major, right.
And so I sat there and thought, golly day, who in the world would the Eagles have traded for? And when they announced A.J. Brown, I was like, wow, that is freaking fantastic, because that's a player I've loved since his days at Ole Miss. And you guys have watched the Eagles for a few years. You go back, when I really saw a physical receiver for the first time with the Eagles was Irving Fryer in the mid-90s. And that was the guy who, if you'd watched in 1995, the West Coast offense, John Gruden tried to run it with Calvin Williams and Fred Barnett, two guys that loved working outside, but they weren't real keen on working the middle. And the West Coast offense struggled with those guys because they just wouldn't run those slants and just the dig routes and just get in there and take those vicious hits from safeties and linebackers. 96, all of a sudden you have Irving Fryer. You had a physical player who was not afraid to go anywhere. And he brought a real presence to that offense, and the offense got substantially better with him. And then, so that was the first time I saw a real physical receiver with the Eagles. And they didn't have one for a long time after that, until, of course, Terrell Owens came into play. And since him, we've gone for smaller, speedier guys. Obviously, Deshaun being the most extreme example, Jeremy Maclin. These are just not physical players. Devontae's physical for his size, but at 170 pounds, how physical can you be? And so to me, adding a big, tough physical guy, I was excited by that because I've loved watching guys like Anquan Bolden, Debo Samuel. I loved watching AJ in Tennessee. I love guys that can out-muscle a corner, fight for a ball. Even if they're covered, they can battle through that with their strength and their toughness, make a catch. And make
wasn't JJ Arcega-Whiteside, Tommy. I will give the short window to Alshon Jeffrey. He was that for a very short.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah, he for when he was healthy and locked in and good there, he gave us that 1 year of 2017. But for so long, we've just had more finesse receivers. That's fine. You don't have to have physical guys. That's just something I've always loved. I've loved those. Anquan Bolt's one of my favorite all-time players. So to get somebody who's got that kind of 220-pound thick build, who catches the football and it can make plays after the catch, that's what this offense has been lacking in recent years. So adding that guy in, I think, is going to be a big help for Jalen Hurts.
It's funny that you went there because last week on the show, John and I were talking about, I think he wrote it in a column on Philly Voice. I know he said it here on Birds 365. The combination of Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown might be the best, most talented duo the Eagles have had at wide receiver since a long time ago. I went back to Irving Fryer and Christy Jones.
Yeah.
And John laughed at my Christy Jones reference, but get the point. I'm with you, Tommy. I was a huge Irving Fryer fan, but they do have a chance to have a outstanding duo on the outside next year. Back to the draft thing that you were talking about, the Ravens, and they were worried that it wasn't going to get down to them. Well, the reason that both the Eagles and the Ravens had to be worried is because the Commanders could have taken someone at 13, and they chose to trade out of that position and traded down and got a couple of day 3 picks for the Eagles for their design. How badly do you think they screwed up?
Well, and honestly, the draft is different to every team every year. And what are your goals going in? And the Eagles have a pretty solid roster. I mean, they just went 9-8 last year. I heard you guys talking about should they really be 9-7 since they didn't play anybody in a final game. They were a solid team last year, and so they didn't need a ton of bodies. What they needed was guys that were difference makers. And so to them, as much as I would have valued having the 4th round picks, to them getting a difference maker like Jordan Davis was more valuable. But if you've got an older team, or if you've got a young coaching staff, and you're trying to bring in a bunch of bodies, maybe you need a volume draft and you need a bunch of picks. Or if you've just lost to guys in free agency, the Ravens, for instance, they loaded up on 4th round picks. But I think they had 6 4th round picks.
Yeah, 6.
They've lost a bunch of guys to free agency, and they knew that if they're going to pay Lamar Jackson big money coming up, they've got to be able to have some young players that they can pay cheap. So they loaded up on mid-round picks by design. That's something they wanted. Well, the Eagles, they loved having those resources, and it would have been great to have a 4th round pick to use on a running back or a safety. But at the end, they said, it's more important for us to get somebody who can be a difference maker. And I go back to, I agree with that philosophy for what the Eagles were. You go back to that game against Tampa Bay, and the Eagles had a solid team. Tampa Bay had a solid team, but Tampa Bay had those difference makers. Tom Brady, obviously a quarterback, the defensive lineman they had. You saw when they brought their safety down, they just totally shut down the Eagles' run game. They just had guys that could make plays, and the Eagles didn't have guys who could make plays. And so you needed that element. So Jordan Davis can be a guy who can help you in that regard, some this year, but obviously more so in the future.
There is a little bit of a give and take, as you mentioned, Tommy. You used the word I use all the time, and that's volume. So your volume went down from 10 picks to 5, and you do get the difference makers, but you don't have the ability to go fill in those holes. Day 3, we all thought they were going to take a running back, for instance,
sure,
with Jordan Howard. Corner being most obvious, safety, very obvious. Any concern, the fact that, we're in early May, and Howie will tell you that they're not playing a game. There's still time, but they had to play a game today. It's Zach McPherson at outside corner, Marcus Epps at safety. Is that possible come week 1, or do the Eagles have to add with veteran bodies?
Well, it is certainly possible. In other words, those guys can be functional players. What we don't know is, can they be good players? And, we've seen enough from Marcus Epps to know you can put him at safety. You can have a functional defense. When we've seen guys that weren't functional, they're getting up touchdowns left and right. I'm drawing a blank on the cornerback. We had going up against the Giants back about 2010, 2011, 2010 maybe it was. It just got burned. Maybe it was Dimitri Patterson, got burned play after play. You just couldn't have him out there and have a functional defense. And so with Epps, you can. With McPherson, there's a question we don't know. The Eagles liked him enough to draft him in the 4th round last year. And if you go back to last year, they didn't sign Steven Nelson until the summer. So there was a thought possibly that the Eagles were willing to go with Zach McPherson as a starter last year. When Steve Nelson agreed to sign cheap, they said, all right, we'll go with you, and we'll have McPherson learn for a year. They may want to take a look at McPherson and see what he's got. So we'll see. They don't have to make those moves. I think Howie did make a really relevant point when he talked about, when they have less picks, they've got to have a great class of undrafted players. And I think the Eagles did do a very good job of signing undrafted players. Now, that doesn't mean those guys are going to pan out. They went undrafted for a reason. But as we know, history says if you sign, a solid group of undrafted players, you can find talent there. And the Eagles have done it over the years. So they might have found some potential there. They signed 3 corners that all had potential. They added a safety in Reed Blankenship, who has some NFL traits, and then a running back with Kennedy Brooks, the young man from Oklahoma. He's a very talented player. So they added guys that have the potential to compete for roster spots.
When you say Patterson at corner, I immediately go to Elvis, which equates to toast.
Toast.
So,
toast. Yeah, there you go. That's a good old school reference.
Absolutely. Good old Elvis Toast Patterson. All right. Let me talk about a guy who's more than just filling a void, and that's Eagles' 3rd-round draft pick, Nakobe Dean. I would have been very cool with the Eagles taking him in the 1st round. Shoot, when the Eagles had 3 first-round picks before they made the trades that they made, they did have 3, and I thought there was a chance. For the first time since 1979, Jerry Robinson, we're going to refer to him until the Eagles take a 1st-round draft pick, a linebacker. Sorry, Jerry, you got to continue to hear your name. I was good with it. I think he's that talented a player. And for the Eagles to get him in the 80s, we know about the extra information about injuries that came out after the fact. We know he's a little undersized at linebacker, but then again, Aaron Donald was undersized the year he came out, and he didn't go till 13th, and there are 12 teams still bemoaning the fact that they didn't call Aaron Donald's name. How big a difference maker can Nakobe Dean be for the Eagles, Jeff?
I'm really curious to see how they use him because, the standard defense in the NFL these days is the nickel defense, which is usually 4 down linemen, 2 linebackers. So when they have 2 linebackers on the field, I'm curious, are they planning on Nakobe Dean being one of them and Kaiser White being the other? Are they thinking of TJ Edwards and Nakobe Dean? I'm curious where they're planning him to play at middle linebacker or at weak side. And with his size, he can play either one because 5'11", 229, that really, in theory, is more of a weak side linebacker size. But he's a physical enough player that he can play middle linebacker in today's NFL. If this was 1995 and we had the I formation and fullback sitting in play after play, you'd rather him be up about 240. And in today's NFL, which is a passing league and then some ISO runs, or zone runs, rather, where you can scrape to the football and make tackles, being 229 pounds at middle linebacker is not a huge deal. So he can play either spot, and I'm excited to see what he can do. He's a natural leader. He diagnoses plays well. He's smart. He has all the intangibles in the world. This is absolutely a guy you want there. He's not an explosive athlete. And so that being a little undersized at 5'11", 229 and not being an explosive athlete, that's what drove him down. And then the questions about the pec injury affected it a little bit. Usually when you have a guy who's a little undersized at 5'11", 235 or so, they run 4.5, and so they go test well, and that's when Tampa's taking guys like that early. The Falcons are taking guys like that, and they've had success with those guys. And Devin White, Jones, those guys have played really well for their teams. So Nakobe Dean, the fact that he doesn't have perfect speed, doesn't have perfect size, great value pick in the 80s. I think he can be a real difference maker for the Eagles because he can take the, if you look at TJ Edwards, that's a smart, instinctive linebacker. Well, here's another guy who's got that. He's a better athlete than Edwards is. And I think he's going to be able to make plays all over the field. And he is a playmaker. He's, you go back and watch his tape at Georgia, and it had 6.5 sacks. I think. I know he had a pick 6. He made tackles all over the field. He was able to stuff inside runs. He's a really talented player who's got a very bright future. And it's exciting that hey, listen, if he had to slide, I'm glad he slid to the Eagles.
There you go.
Yeah. We talk about value a lot, and there's no question Nakobe Dean is tremendous value in the 3rd round. I want to talk about the 2nd round, though, because a lot of Eagles fans, I don't want to say upset, but they're wondering why you take a sort of luxury as the potential heir apparent to Jason Kelce. Now, you go back to 2020, Jalen Hurts was the 2nd round pick, and people said, well, why are you drafting a quarterback when you have Carson Wentz and you paid him all this money, and all of a sudden Jalen Hurts is your starting quarterback? You go back to 2021 and the Eagles take an injury potential issue in Landon Dickerson. People are questioning why you bothering with that? You have immediate needs. Turns out Landon Dickerson pretty good, pretty early, stayed healthy, and we'll see if that will continue long term. And here we are again in 2022, sort of a luxury pick. Today's luxury, though, could be tomorrow's need. Any issues with Cam Jurgens at 51 overall?
Well, let me say this. I love Cam Jurgens, the prospect. You know, he was a fantastic player at Nebraska, absolutely outstanding athlete, an overachiever, tough, really good blocker, able to do a lot of things. And, you know, when you looked at Jason Kelsey, this is a guy who has similar type abilities. So if you wanted an athletic center, you know, Tyler Linderbaum is certainly one. Cam Jurgens is certainly one. And value, he's worth a second-round pick. So that all makes complete sense. I was a little frustrated with it just because at a certain point, you want to invest resources in your offensive line, but you can get by. I mean, think about who was the left tackle when the Eagles won a Super Bowl, right? It was Big V, who was a fifth-round pick.
Bati Baitai. I'm glad
right.
you gave me the
it wasn't Jason
opportunity to
Peters.
say that. Yeah.
It was Big V. And so, you know, Daniel Jeremiah had something he put on Twitter, I don't know, a few months back, and talked about during the playoffs, the last few Super Bowl teams, and what had they invested in the first round. And what he found was those offensive lines weren't built with a bunch of first-round picks and not even a bunch of second-round picks. You know, you need one or two key players, your left tackle or your right tackle, and then maybe a key guard. But you also needed to you could develop offensive linemen to start. And you could develop those guys with mid-round picks, late-round picks, God forbid a UDFA. And when you're looking for skill players and difference makers, sometimes those guys, you're much more likely to find them with your high picks. So at a certain point, you're almost over investing in an offensive line if you spend too many high picks there. That was my concern with Cam Jurgens, is the Eagles haven't invested the picks they have in recent years to build up the line. And I sat there and said, you know, he will probably start next year. This is almost certainly Jason Kelsey's last year. So he'll take over for Jason Kelsey. He'll be the Eagles center for the next 8 to 10 years if he stays healthy. He'll do a good job. He's a good value pick. But would you have been better to invest that pick in a defensive back? I got to add another running back, take Nakobe Dean, who we didn't think would last to the third round, any number of things. And then we know Jason Kelsey started as a rookie, right? You can start as a young guy at center. Creed Humphrey started as a rookie for the Chiefs, and they were an outstanding team this year. You know, so you don't have to be a veteran, you know, and you don't have to sit for a couple of years to start a center. And we know if you look back in Eagles history, you know, Hank Fraley was an undrafted player the Eagles brought over from the Steelers practice squad, sat for a year and started for the Eagles. Jamal Jackson was a guy that was on the Eagles practice squad. So he was a young guy that, again, was an undrafted player that the Eagles turned into a starting center for several years. So you can find centers throughout the draft. Now, would those guys have been as good as Jurgens? No. But the question is, and luxury is a good word, is taking Jurgens a luxury so that you go from a star center in Jason Kelsey to a star center in Cam Jurgens? Is that a necessity or is that a luxury? And in a certain sense, it is a luxury. Howie always talks about how the Eagles believe in building their offensive line. That's all well and good, but you know, at a certain point, you have to be careful. Am I investing too much there? And am I missing out on, again, we watched that secondary last year. At a certain point, was giving up 80% completions. You know, the secondary needed some help. So yeah, we're building up the offensive line, but what are we going to do about the secondary? These are legit questions.
Andre Sachere to the rescue. Let's go a little optimistic here. Season ends. We all get to evaluate the Jalen Hurts season. The only quarterback in the league he needs to take a backseat to in running the football is Lamar Jackson. That's a major value-added trait that he has. Passing needs improvement. The area of the passing needs improvement most, accuracy. Wasn't nearly as accurate as he needs to be if he's going to be a going forward franchise quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. assuming improved accuracy for Jalen Hurts, cross your fingers, Eagle fans, will it be mostly because natural, second year as a starter, everybody gets better the more they do it, experience and the like? Will it be because of the work he's done this offseason with former major league pitchers as his coaches out there on the West Coast in California? Or will it because they added a guy like A.J. Brown, who Tommy Lawler tells us, you need a big guy who's not afraid to go over the middle, catch the ball, and hold on to the ball? It's probably a combination of all three, but which one would you put on the top of the list?
Experience more than anything. There's no question. Yeah, and if you go back and look at Donovan McNabb, in 1999, he started, I think, 6 games. Then in 2000, a lot of people forget, Donovan McNabb was the NFL MVP, the runner-up for the MVP in 2000. But the passing game, you had Charles Johnson and Torrance Small. The passing game was not good.
Doing the pinky dance, if you didn't pick up on that. That's a Todd Pinkston reference.
He was a rookie there, and he only caught 10 passes as a rookie, so he wasn't on the field much. And then in 2001, so Donovan at that point was in his 3rd year. He had started a full season, but in 2000 he ran around and made play with his legs. And then in 2001, the passing game started to really come alive, and the receivers got a little bit better. Pinkston emerged as an effective starter. They brought in James Thrash, and James Thrash actually had a good season in 2001. And they started to show some progress as a passing offense because McNabb became more accurate. He trusted his receivers. He understood the offense. He understood defenses better. And I think you'll see the same things out of Jalen Hurts, where he started four games as a rookie. Then last year he started most of the season. And now he's transitioning to his 3rd year. He's going to know the offense better. He's going to know defenses. He's going to have better receivers. One of the keys is, as we were talking pre-draft, there was a lot of talk about would the Eagles get one of these explosive receivers. If you go back and watch, the deep ball from Jalen Hurts was not great last year. The place that he needs to make, and the Eagles offense needs help, is making plays after the catch. So let's throw those slants and digs, and let's throw a short pass that's more high percentage, and then let's make plays after the catch. And we know Nick Sirianni is a big believer in that. A.J. Brown can make a huge impact there, because if you put the ball anywhere near him, he's going to catch it. And then that's when the play starts for him, is when it's in his hands. So he can start making plays, and that can lead to offensive efficiency and offensive improvement there from just run after the catch. So I think there'll be a variety of things that come together that make the Eagles passing offense and Jalen Hurts more effective this year.
He is Tommy Lawler. You can follow him on Twitter at Lawler NFL. Read him at Eagles Blitz, IGGLES, blitz.com, scoutsnotebook.com. Tommy, I see you wrote, I'll leave you here with this, my last one. I saw you wrote about the Eagles rebuilding their personnel department. We know Matt Russell, the latest addition coming back, former national scout for the Eagles back in the day, had been John Elway's right-hand man in Denver, played at the university. A great linebacker, by the way, Matt Russell back in the day. A lot of attrition, we know, and Howie Roseman's going to be on the JAKIB Media YouTube network today at 12:15, so everybody stay tuned for that. It's a good thing, I would think, when other organizations covet your people. It indicates, they think they're trained well. They think they're ready. It's kind of something that it's difficult to gauge when you lose an Ian Cunningham, a Brandon Brown, a Catherine Raish, and you bring in Charles Walls and Matt Russell. We'll see who else. But how do you frame these changes and all the upheaval in the personnel department for the Eagles?
Well, people are getting promotions, so that's a good thing. If they were leaving because they weren't happy, then you'd have a problem. So Howie's hired well, and he's trained well, and there's no question Howie knows how to run a front office. You look at his ability to work with a cap, and that's not so much him as the cap staff that he's assembled for the Eagles. They know how to structure contracts wisely. With trades, he knows how to trade with all of the other 31 teams. He's worked out trades involving the draft, involving players. So he knows how to run a front office. There's a lot to learn from him. I'm sure Joe Douglas would tell you, being in Baltimore, he learned a lot about how to run a draft, but being in Philadelphia and working for Howie, you learn another side of things. So there's a lot of value to coming to Philadelphia. You're a victim of your own success, just like teams that draft well and they can't re-sign all their players and those players leave in free agency. It's the same thing. You're a victim of your own success. And I think Howie bringing in, Charles Walls, who we've heard reported, it's not official, from Cleveland would be a good hire. Matt Russell's an interesting hire. There's been some other talk of some other guys. Nothing's official yet. And I think one of the things that's smart is as he brings some of these people in, Matt Russell has been around the league for a long time, has a lot of connections. One of the things Howie's really good at is having connections around the league so that he knows what's going on with other teams. And that allows him to have good trade partners and to have a sense of what teams are going to do. And part of that is gathering information. And one of that, so he had Tom Donahoe for years. Well, Donahoe knew just about everybody in the NFL because he was such a long time a personnel guy. He's had one of the Mueller, was it Randy Mueller, was with the team for a little bit?
Randy
Mueller, okay.
Friend of the show, Randy's brother, Rick. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then, now he's got Dave Caldwell, formerly of the Jaguars. So he brings in people that have some interesting connections, and it allows him to have a feel for what's going on around the league. And so that way you have a feel of who's going to fall where in the draft, what kind of plans can make. That doesn't mean that you're going to draft well by hiring these guys. It just means that you have a good feel for what's going on with the other teams, and you can use their connections. And then, occasionally you bring in outside ideas, and maybe they see something you don't, they know something you don't. And I think Howie would tell you, that, listen, nobody is a guru that knows everything. So if you can bring in a lot of smart people and listen to their brains, listen to their opinions, pick their brains, you have a chance to build up a consensus and try to figure out what the best moves are for your team.
One of our better moves is when we ask Tommy Lawler to hop on Birds 365 with us. Check out his website, post some great Eagle content a couple times a week. That's Eagles, IGGLES, Blitz.com. Tommy, good stuff as always. We appreciate it whenever you join us. Thanks, bud. We'll get back in touch soon enough.
Always good to talk Irving Fryer, Chris T. Jones, and Ellis Patterson.
Chris T. Underrated Eagle wide receiver, Chris T. Jones.
Totally. If not for that knee injury, he'd have been so good. Irv
drew a lot of attention. That's why Christie was able to make some plays every once in a while. Great stuff, Tommy. Thank you much for coming on.
Take care, fellas.
Tommy Lawler here with us on Birds 365. All right, Mac and Mac coming back. We got to put a bow on the show. And once again, tell you, we got a big guest coming up here.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Android TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
The big story on Action News.
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
In Philadelphia, we celebrated the miracle with pride only 5 years ago. And then the following morning, IBEW Local 98 members went back to work, building this city, rescuing our communities from decay, and inspiring the young men and women of the region to take pride in who we are. Like the Cats, Local 98 members believe in hope.
To learn more about who we are, what we do, and career opportunities with Local 98, visit us, IBEW98.org.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass, free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit. Glass is for cocktails, right?
It's for this, 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 and that.
Is the length of the glass equal to your...
You betcha.
But is it made out of...
Glass?
Okay, but is the rip...
Smooth?
Will you stop doing...
That?
I'm the professional here.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. 1 free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of stateside vodka. All from the company that's highly awarded. 0 carbs, 0 sugar, and deliciously tasting vodka. So good, it just disappears.
All right, coming down the home stretch of this Wednesday edition of Birds 365 with McMullen and McDonald. Howie Roseman scheduled to jump aboard the channel about 2 hours and 15 minutes from now. So don't even think about logging off. You wouldn't do that because you forget to log back on. You're going to miss Howie Roseman. No, you're not. You're going to keep it right here. I'm wondering when we're going to get somebody from the Eagles on. John McMullen. These are your guys. You go down there. You see these guys.
These are. Yeah.
I'm figuring we got a shot now. Just feel free to tell me I'm overreaching here. If I do that, I apologize in advance.
No,
and Nick might be a little tough. He's head coach, new guy. They protect him a little bit. But you're on a first initial basis with the defensive coordinator. You and JG are like this.
Well, the Eagles.
Can you not make that happen? Do you have whose butt do you have to kiss to get that done? To get the Eagles defensive coordinator here on Birds 365. Is he a late sleeper? Is that why we haven't had Jonathan Gannon on yet?
He's definitely not a late sleeper. Definitely not his problem. Yeah. How do I say this politically? I don't know if I can say it politically, so I'm going to turn the page. When you ask harder questions, it becomes harder. I'll just say that. How's that?
Right. But neither one of us has crushed Jonathan Gannon. He's taken a hell of a lot more heat from a lot of other corners than from either John McMullen or Jody McDonald.
Oh, I'd like JG.
We've been more defenders than detractors.
Yeah. I like him personally. I'm surprised he's not a head coach in this league. Coordinators, though, are really, generally the Eagles don't want them talking. You don't see the coordinators on even WIP or anything like that. So that's just sort of organizational structure. I do want to say, I don't know where I got that
personal relationship could exceed those boundaries, McMullen.
Because Howie is going to be on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel 12:15 today. I'll talk about this another day. I'm trying to steer away from it today, but I'll explain it another day. How's that, Jody?
Right,
and I don't know where I got. By the way, I want to go back. I don't know where I got that Thanksgiving thing. That didn't leak. I don't know where I got that. So
no, the only thing I saw, and I looked it up, same as you. There's heavy speculation that Detroit will get Miami on Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
this year it's because one team's got to play an AFC team every year for television purposes, because the road team dictates where the game is going to be broadcast. And the Cowboys played an AFC team last year, so it's the year turn for the Lions to play an AFC team. And the Dolphins and the Bills, I think, are the two AFC teams they're playing. And the Bills have played on Thanksgiving 2 of the last 3 years. If they do it again, it'll be 3 out of the last 4 years. They're probably not going to do that. So Miami, Detroit is heavy speculation, not official.
Thursday can't come soon enough for me because I am sick of these. I keep getting these emails about schedules, and I'm like, I don't care. Just it's very frustrating, but the league does a good job.
You're going to care if you got to go down to Dallas for Thanksgiving.
Well, if I got to go, I got to go. There's nothing I can do. Control what you can control. There's nothing I can do about it. But this incessant
JM, don't worry, I'll go over and have Thanksgiving dinner with your wife. Give her somebody to cook for us.
Yeah,
you're not
it's going to go over well. This is the life we've chosen, as I said, Jody. If I got to go on
how's that fly when you try and float that balloon?
Does not fly well.
In the McMullen household.
Has not blown well for 2 decades, will not continue to fly.
I didn't think so. Same here in the McDonald household. All right, partner. We will stay tuned. Howie Roseman coming up in just over 2 hours from now here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. We got a couple of guests already booked for tomorrow, including Jimmy Kempski.
And I'm going to be talking to some Eagles players today, so we'll have some news. I don't know who.
Have they given you any? Speaking of leaking, we keep leaking out the schedule information. Have the Eagles leaked any names as to who might be available for you today?
Just some veteran players could be.
Is it going to be the same time that Howie's here on the channel?
Yes, same time.
They do you no favors down there.
They do. They do no favors. Favors.
They make your life a living heck. All right, you make my life easier. Thank you, buddy. I'll be back here tomorrow. How about you?
I will be here. Give me the 2 and 2.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.